Hi everybody!
So the other day, someone commented a theory about the Trails in the Sky remake. Said comment is on screen presently. So this got me thinking, is the Trails in the Sky remake taking place in an alternate reality, just like the Final Fantasy VII remakes, or is this just some creative overthinking? Please note, this video may contain spoilers for some of the Trails games. You've been warned. Alternative realities and causalities are not a new thing to the Trails universe. The Crossbell duology was the first to introduce it, since there was one timeline where the special support section failed at the end of Zero because they never met Joshua and Estelle Bright. They were the deciding factor in that fight. As a result, some wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey bullshit occurred. Other instances where Falcom have toyed with this idea or theme include the ending of Cold Steel 4, where Rean has two choices. One which sees him remaining a self-sacrificing hero and thus undoing pretty much all of his character development, and it's pretty much the whole premise behind Trails Through Daybreak 2, but since that game is far newer and I haven't played it to completion yet, I'm not going to trip over that landmine. Basically what I'm getting at is the fact Falcom don't always play to the idea there's one canon timeline. But okay, since this video is supposed to be about the Sky Remake and not other games in the series, are there any indicators this game might take place in an alt reality? There is one, but I would say it's tenuous at best. It's thanks to one of the most recent trailers that we even have this potential theory, as it shows two characters being in the party at a different point in time than they were in your party during the original game. I would say this evidence is probably circumstantial because Falcom are known to deliberately obscure when events occur. Take for example Cold Steel 1 and Cold Steel 3. In the case of CS1, the prologue plays out a little bit differently from how it does later on in the game, because Falcom chose to omit Crow being in your party during this segment. This was mostly to avoid some of the bigger plot twists found later in Cold Steel 1's narrative. The same thing was done in Cold Steel 3 by excluding Angelica from your party during the prologue, again to avoid some of the plot twists, which would occur later on. Why am I bringing this up though? It's to illustrate that Falcom will manipulate things to hide spoilers. Also, if we're being honest with ourselves, this isn't something unique to Falcom. Developers can and do set things up in trailers that don't happen in the games, because it can either drive hype or because they want to hide obvious spoilers. Now that I've covered some reasons as to why it might be set in an alternative reality, let's explore why it's probably just a faithful remake, and there won't be any changes to the game beyond the mechanical changes that we've seen at the forefront since the game was announced. For one, Falcom haven't stated that this remake is going to change things with the story. If that were the case, I believe they would be putting that right at the forefront of the marketing. As divisive as things have been, Square Enix were very upfront about the Final Fantasy Remake trilogy being a reimagining. So from that standpoint, it's rather unlikely the Sky Remake will feature any major story changes. If anything, I imagine they might make some changes by adding additional story content to fill the game up a little bit, or more along the lines of them changing some things to more achieve consistency with latter entries. You have to remember, some of the future storylines were not planned when the first Trails in the Sky game launched in 2004 in Japan, so them retroactively going back and cleaning up some things with this remake actually makes a lot of sense and is what they'll probably do. Now that we've covered some of why this remake is likely to remain a faithful one and not a reimagining, let's get into some of my thoughts on the matter. I'm of the opinion this is going to be a straight-up remake of the first game with very little changed in way of storytelling or plot. We're going to see some terminology updates and maybe some additional dialogue here or there to better set up events that happen in future arcs. Why do I think this? Mostly, it comes down to the fact Falcom would really be trumpeting the fact this remake is a reimagining. Think about it. The Trails games, even the ones people unfairly shit on for the plot, have things meticulously planned out, because one change will impact the events down the line. Also, with how Falcom have marketed the game so far, This remake is intended to be an easy way to onboard new fans and get them into the series, which isn't something a reimagining can do, since you then introduce plot holes when the people who tried out the Sky Remake pick up future arcs to try those out. Things would then stop making sense, which introduces the idea of Falcom remaking everything in an alternative reality, which isn't something they have the logistical capabilities to do. They're still an incredibly small studio. So, no, this is just creative overthinking from a very small segment of the fanbase. To sum it up, no, the Sky Remake is not going to take place in an alternate reality. It merely has mechanics from games that take place at a later point. Falcom did this because in 2025, a meat and potatoes JRPG is not going to cut it. Also, setting it in an alternative reality would basically be Falcom giving themselves an enema with a fucking porcupine. Thanks go out to my current channel members, whose names are appearing on screen now. If you want to support the channel further, you can do so by clicking the join button or the link in the description. Now check out one of my previous Trails videos, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.